Hey guys, in this video, we're gonna answer the question, is it worth paying an extra $200 for the Samsung Tab S8 Plus versus its little brother, the regular Tab S8? By the end of this video, you'll have a good idea of which one is gonna be better for your use cases. We'll be comparing, of course, the speakers, the display, the S Pen latency, and all other differences between these two tablets. Now, obviously, there isn't really much of a big difference in terms of the actual specs. They both have the same type of memory, same type of CPU processor, so it's really down just to the form factor. And for me, that is the biggest decision when it comes to purchasing these tablets. Which one is better for your use case? Do you prefer a slightly larger OLED screen, or do you want something that is a little bit more compact? Well, I'm gonna give you my opinion by the end of this video. So to start, let's unbox the Tab S8 Plus. So as you already know, in order to save the planet, Samsung decided no longer to include power chargers for this Samsung tablet. Now that's unfortunate because this charger charges at 45 watts, which is quite good. And you're gonna need that because it has a really large 10,000 milliamp battery, which of course takes a long time to charge. So my immediate first impression of this is that this is pretty long and narrow. And I did see this already, I know what it looks like. This is not a new form factor. It has existed for the Samsung Tab S7 and the S7 Fan Edition, FE. So this is a very familiar format, but of course I've never had these two side by side, the Tab S7 or the Tab S8, the regular one, and these two. So it's gonna be quite interesting to compare the two. Now, I got two different colors so that I can better understand what the colors kind of look like in person. So this is the graphite or the black one. And I must say it looks really nice. Now, if you did the pre-order, this would take a long time to kind of come in because everyone has, wants the black version. It's the default color that's selected on their website. So maybe people don't even care and they just try to pre-order and they end up getting this one, this color, which is gonna take a long time. So I know there's a back order maybe until maybe a month plus since the release. So the main thing I wanna find out is the display. Is it really worth that extra $200 to get a larger OLED display over the TFT LCD display? And right off the bat, obviously this looks really nice because OLED technology gives you those really inky dark blacks, very high contrast ratio. And it's something that we're all used to, very accustomed to with our Samsung Galaxy phones like your S20 to S22. So one thing I immediately noticed is that the animations look really, really slick. And of course, it's running the 120 Hertz display. So unfortunately, it's not a variable refresh rate. It's always running at 120 Hertz. You can of course set it to 60 Hertz to save some battery, but I think it's really unfortunate that they don't give you that variable refresh rate, kind of the technology you see in Apple, because it does kill the battery. And apparently the battery on this, even though it's a bigger battery, it doesn't last as long as the other one. That's what everyone has said. So one of the critiques of the larger S8 Plus is that it's kind of hard to hold it with one hand. It feels almost kind of lopsided, like there's more weight on the top, especially when you hold this in portrait mode. And that's the only easy way to enter, let's say I'm entering my Wi-Fi password. It's much easier to do it in portrait versus kind of landscape because this is really awkward. Now, immediately what I noticed when I was trying to enter my Wi-Fi password was that when I was holding it in portrait mode, not only was it really kind of heavy and uncomfortable, it was kind of difficult to reach the entire keyboard, even with my pretty big thumbs over here in the middle. So one thing I did notice is that the extra, it's about 0.77 inches in terms of its width, does kind of contribute to less ergonomics when entering in portrait mode. Okay, so we'll let that update and then we'll unbox the other one. Now, already holding this box just feels a lot more compact, a lot more, hand-friendly to use, and I kind of like this form factor a little bit more. So we'll see if this is actually the case. Okay, immediately a lot smaller. I really like this form factor. I think I'm gonna like it a lot more than the Tab S8 Plus. Getting these two tablets is a way to eliminate my buyer's remorse, especially when I would prefer to have OLED technology on this tablet, but I am sacrificing it for the smaller form factor. Okay, so immediately, I really like the silver color. Now, I typically always put a case on these tablets. For my previous one, the Samsung Tab S5e, I actually used the Spigen kickstand case, which was an amazing case. I did a full review about it. The nice thing with that case was that it was so easy to carry your tablet around. You can even hold it by the kickstand to get that extra support, that firm grip. And of course, you can put it around your house and put it in different places. Really compact way to kind of just set up your tablet in a landscape mode so that you can actually see it and enjoy it. So yes, this is a much more compact tablet. It's still pretty big. I really wish they would make a premium 8-inch tablet, but unfortunately this is the case we live in. One other difference is that it uses a fingerprint scanner on the side on the power button instead of an optical in-display fingerprint scanner. We'll test that and see which one is more consistent, which one has a better user experience. Okay, so I immediately turned it on and I didn't really notice anything too bad about the black levels. It still looks really good. The screen so far looks really nice. If you look to the edge, yeah, you can see just a slight difference. So I'm looking at this welcome page. It's really the viewing angles. If you look straight onto it, it looks totally fine, but the viewing angles, maybe it's a little bit different. Let's try the Tab S8. It seems like the Tab S8 Plus, I don't know, it has a bluer tone to it, like a cooler tone, whereas the regular Tab has a warm tone to it. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the OLED is slightly better at this point. We'll have to see beyond this welcome screen and actually get started. Still kind of difficult to type with this. I feel like my thumbs are still being stretched towards the center of the keyboard, which is a little bit annoying. Okay, so for the Tab S8 Plus, we'll register our fingerprint. So you notice that it gets really bright. It is a optical fingerprint scanner. It's not using the ultrasonic fingerprint scanner that is typically in your Samsung phones like this one here, S20. Okay, we'll add another more common fingerprint, and that's my thumb. Let's actually hold this tablet. We would actually use our thumb fingerprint scan. Okay, so let's register our fingerprint with the regular Tab S8. Just hold it over here. Now, one of the main reasons why I really like this fingerprint scanner is that it's more easy to estimate where it is. Obviously, this takes some practice with the regular Tab S8 Plus. It's kind of hard to find that specific spot in the middle bottom of where this fingerprint scanner is. If you have a case with this one, it gets even easier to locate the fingerprint scanner. So it has a little groove. You can just put your finger there and it becomes such an easy process to unlock it. Now, I personally just use my face to unlock all these tablets, and I find that a lot more convenient to use than using patterns or fingerprints. So it really depends on your preferences on how you prefer to unlock your device. It's not as secure to use your face. So let's compare the two fingerprint sensors. I'm gonna just try it with the Tab S8 Plus first. Okay, so not bad, it was pretty fast, a little bit slow. Now we do it with this one, that regular Tab S8. I think it's a little bit faster over this one. I think the optical technology is just inherently a little bit slower. Let's try that one more time. Okay, yeah, so I think the side-mounted fingerprint scanner on the regular S8 is a tad faster, so that could be more convenient. So that's something to know. Something I immediately noticed is that the fingerprint scanner on the Tab S8 Plus is a little bit more difficult to use because I'm always missing the accuracy of it. It's really hard to find it. So maybe we can tweak it by putting on like an always-on display that shows where the fingerprint scanner is, so it's easier to locate it. So I've been using these devices for quite some time. We're gonna run through our benchmark tests, sound tests, video tests, everything, and I'm gonna give you my full conclusion in a second. Now, one of the things that I noticed is that the form factor of this larger Tab S8 Plus feels really good in terms of just kind of like the eyesight. Everything is just kind of has a bigger font, and I immediately noticed that as I was using it. So based on my first impression, I have to say it is slightly better than the Tab S8. To be honest, the difference is only apparent if you compare the two together, like side by side. If you look at just the Tab S7 or the S7 8, it does look really nice on its own. So I don't think you'll necessarily be missing much because I'm just using this and it just looks fantastic. Now, one of the benefits of having a smaller tablet is that it's easier to mount it on one of these, which then you can use this as like a secondary monitor display stand, or even like a camera, like a remote camera, because apparently these front-facing cameras have been upgraded from the previous version. So let's check it out. So yeah, that was really easy to mount. I'm not looking forward to mount this one because this is a little bit too wide. Okay, so let's open up some copyright-free music. Wow, this timeout is so annoying on the display. Screen timeout, let's put that off because that's super annoying. Interesting, so the screen timeout on this regular Tab S8 has 30 minutes as an option, and this one doesn't have 30 minutes. I wonder if that has anything to do with the OLED technology, which is susceptible to burn-in. So apparently that has been fixed, but it's interesting that it only has 10 minutes, whereas this has 30 minutes. Now, I personally don't listen to music on my tablets. I strictly watch YouTube, and that's mostly just voice.
On the one hand, I want to be optimistic. The kind of
And both these quad speaker setups do a good job at rendering people's voices. It has really good treble, doesn't have mushy bass, so you can really hear it. And especially as I get older, my hearing gets worse, and I find that a lot of smart speakers have terrible voice because they really emphasize the bass. And the treble on this is excellent and very clear and high quality. And I would say a lot better than your typical phone, which is another reason to have a tablet.
This is about a king and brothers to match.
I can take care of myself.
So after doing the speaker test, I didn't really notice a big difference between the Tab S8 Plus and the regular Tab S8, which is quite shocking because a lot of YouTuber reviewers out there said that the Tab S8 Plus has a better speaker or substantially better speaker. And that wasn't really what I heard. So let me know in the comment section down below if you did see or hear a difference between the two speakers. I'm a little bit disappointed with the Plus. I thought it would have a little bit more like maybe it's a little bit better, but I really did not hear a difference. Now let's do a CPU comparison between these two devices. Now they both have the same Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chip inside, which apparently runs hot. We'll find out in my full review. And so there shouldn't be any more differences between these two in terms of the CPU performance and the graphics performance. So let's run that right now. So you can see in the second run of Geekbench 5 is that the Tab S8 scored a little bit higher in the single core, but still a little bit lower in the multi-cores. So it seems like the Tab S8 Plus is running a little bit faster in terms of its multi-core performance. But this is not very significant difference. Okay, so for the next test, we're gonna test the S Pen, and more specifically, we're gonna test the latency. So apparently on the Tab S8 Plus, it has a lower latency, about 5 milliseconds less than the Tab S8. Now this one, the Tab S8 is already pretty damn fast. So I'm curious to know if there's a substantial difference in terms of the S Pen performance. And this is especially important for people who do demanding creative work, especially creative artists who really prefer perhaps a larger canvas, which would be provided by the Tab S8 Plus. So the S Pen feels really nice. I like that it's a big improvement over the Tab S6. It's no longer that flat edge, it feels more circular. Okay, so for my initial impression, I didn't really see a big difference in terms of the latency. Obviously, maybe the Tab S8 Plus is slightly ahead and it feels a little bit more realistic, but it's such a minor difference that it's really hard to like actually feel it. So especially side by side, if you don't really see a difference, then maybe it's not really a reason to upgrade just for the S Pen performance, because the S8, the regular one, performs perfectly fine in terms of its latency, and it's very impressive what it can do. So we're gonna have to run this at a high frame rate to see if there's actually any visual difference in terms of the latency, and we'll confirm that later. Now, one of the main reasons why you may not even want to get the S8 Plus is just the form factor. And right off the bat, feeling it in my hands, it just does seem very hefty. And one thing I don't like about it is just how vertically tall it is when you hold it in portrait mode. I personally myself do use this in a portrait mode position, and it just feels very top heavy because it's just so tall. But when I actually use the regular Tab S8, it seems a little bit more balanced and more normal, and it kind of just feels a little bit more easy to hold in the hands. That's something that is a big factor in terms of what you want to experience when you're holding this device. Now, in terms of screen brightness, let's put these both to the max, and let me tell you if there's any visible difference in terms of the max brightness. It almost seems like the regular Tab S8 is slightly brighter, and so that's a good positive for the Tab S8. So I think the viewing angles are slightly better on the OLED one, but it doesn't really bother me on the regular S8 in terms of the viewing angles, but it's certainly there. So yeah, maybe it's a little bit better, and definitely on the S8 Plus. So I just really like this form factor a lot more. I don't know, I can actually hold it with one of my hands. Whereas this one, the large one, it's like I can't even hold it like this. It's really difficult. This one here, kind of have somewhat of a one-handed operation. Okay, so let's test the cameras. Hopefully I didn't smudge it with my hands on both of these. I'm speaking into the regular Tab S8 front-facing camera. How's the picture quality? How does it sound? How does it test? Testing 1, 2, 3. I'm testing with the rear camera of the regular size Tab S8. How does it sound? How does it look? I'm also testing 4K. That should be substantially better in terms of its resolution. The camera on the Tab S8 and the S8 Plus use the same sensor and processor, so I expected no real difference. They're pretty mediocre and are fine for video conferencing or taking the odd photo of a document here and there. One thing I did notice though while filming myself was that it was really easy to cover the mic with my hand, which totally ruined the shot and the audio. But putting on a case or using a tablet stand, which I will review on this channel, so stay subscribed for that, really helps with the mic interference. Okay, so let's conclude this video. After a few weeks of using both these tablets, I'm finally able to give my final verdict, which should help with your purchasing decision. The first thing is that, surprisingly, there was not a substantial difference in speaker quality, which was a big surprise given all the hype from all the tech reviewers. You'd think that the larger body of the Tab S8 Plus would give the advantage, But no matter what type of media I was playing, whether it be music, movies, voice-centric videos like YouTube videos, I could not hear a substantial difference in sound quality between the two tablets. Second, there was no noticeable difference in the S Pen performance. This was yet another disappointment. However, both tablets perform very well when it comes to the realistic feeling of using the S Pen. It feels lifelike. As for the camera and the overall CPU performance, it was expected that both of these would be more or less the same for these tablets since they're sharing the same internal CPU chip and camera sensors. Both tablets performed very well, everything was super snappy, and this was a huge gigantic leap in performance coming from my ancient Tab S5e. Okay, so let's move on to the differences. This is where the major issues appear. The most obvious difference is the form factor and the display. The question that I was trying to answer was, is the extra $200 worth the OLED screen technology? Well, to summarize, yes, it's definitely worth it, but there's a major caveat to that. First, the large 12.4-inch form factor versus the 11-inch form factor of the regular Tab S8 is, at least in my preferences, a huge con. You see, I much prefer the smaller form factor of the regular tablet. Now, yes, I know there are many people who prefer a larger screen to take advantage of things like having a more immersive video watching experience, larger text, more room for multitasking, and you can even leverage this screen real estate as a very reliable secondary monitor for your Windows PC. But with the larger screen, it really sacrifices things like portability, and it makes it hard to use while hand-holding it, especially if you're in bed or you're trying to type something. I think it's an undershame that Samsung doesn't put their OLED technology in their smaller tablets. I just don't understand why this is the case. I mean, come on. My budget-friendly Tab S5e had an AMOLED display. It really upsets me that we're forced to pick between OLED technology or the smaller form factor. In the perfect world for Android users, we'd even have a smaller tablet, a competitor to the iPad mini, like an 8-inch tablet, something that is super compact and just really nice to hold in the hands. Now, you may be wondering, is the TFT LCD display technology on the regular Tab S8 really that bad? Well, for the most part, the display is fine, but it really falls apart in a particular situation which I'm going to talk about very shortly. The difference side by side is more noticeable, but the TFT display isn't bad by any means. Now, yes, it's true that the viewing angles and the contrast ratios are better on OLED. The OLED display just looks more uniformly lit. You can see less of a pixel grid, but that's only really noticeable if you put your eye really next to the screen on the regular Tab S8. Here's where the difference between OLED and TFT is really intensified and extremely obvious. If you're a person like me who likes to use their tablet at night, and let's be honest, who doesn't like to use their tablet at night in bed? We're all addicted to our screens and just can't get enough of social media, right? Anyway, the real difference between LCD and OLED becomes blatantly apparent when you enable the Eye Comfort Shield feature, which is a feature that adjusts your screen to a warmer tone to eliminate blue light that can interfere with your sleep patterns. This is an extremely important feature because it helps reduce eye strain when using our tablets and allows us to use our devices more safely at night. So to get a sense of how bad it is, just look at this. It's on a spectrum. The more you eliminate the harmful blue light rays, that means to increase the eye comfort, the worse it gets on the regular Tab S8. In my opinion, this was probably the most depressing part of being forced to use an inferior display technology just for the sake of having a more hand-friendly form factor tablet. I mean, come on, Samsung. I'll pay whatever it takes to get the OLED display. Just don't force me to change my user habits, such as adopting a clunkier device. So there you have it. At the end of the day, when you enable the blue light reduction feature on your Tab S8, you really highlight how bad the LCD can be. However, during the day, when the Eye Comfort Shield feature is disabled, the difference between the two technologies is pretty negligible, but I still see that the OLED is better when compared side by side. It's sad that the only solution is either not to use the eye protection feature at night, which would affect my circadian rhythm, or just put up with the horrible looking washed out picture. Now, there's one minor benefit to having a TFT display, and it's the ability to have an adaptive refresh rate. Unlike the Tab S8 Plus and Ultra, the regular size Tab S8 can more efficiently save battery and run longer because it can dynamically lower the refresh rate when watching things like movies or static content. This overall will save the battery and have it last longer. So how do you guys feel about this situation? Are you as outraged as I am for Samsung denying us loyal fans, for having a smaller form factor tablet with OLED technology? Or are you just simply okay with this? Perhaps you're not like me and you really enjoy the larger size of the S8 Plus and really can take advantage of the larger display and just have a better media consumption experience. By the way, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel if you want to see my full review of the Tab S8. So far, it has been excellent except for the whole fiasco regarding the eye comfort shield feature. Also, I will be releasing a couple videos of some of my favorite accessories like this Spigen Tough Armor case with the kickstand. It's a really great case and I can't wait to review it. Anyways, thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video.